if you could exit hi-fi right now, I mean, get out of this stuff.
Yeah.
Forget the hi-fi.
Yeah.
Forget the high-end shit. Could you do it?
Yes.
What would you do in terms of listening to music?
You know, to be honest with you, most of my music is consumed how a lot of people consume it, which is on the PC. So I would. So I guess I'm a hypocrite. I'd still like to have a good desktop system, which would technically qualify as hi-fi. I've been spoiled by that. I probably wouldn't want to go away from that. But as far as having that main system that you just sit down in front of and you listen to for hours on end, I could give that up.
You could walk away from it.
I could walk away from it today if needs be.
When did that change for you?
10 years ago.
What happened?
I was heavily into it.
Yeah.
As you know, I've told you before, I come from the high end, right? And this means owning equipment that costs as much as sports cars and so on and so forth. And I went through this period to where a number of situations occurred, both in my personal life and just within the industry. I started to learn a lot about how things were really working. And it was almost like the cape of this of many
curtains.
superheroes. Yeah. It's like it all parted. The cape fell down, and I lost my interest in almost this connection that I had with an industry and just a product type that I love so much. And I actually walked away from it for 5 years.
So elaborate on that. Like what kind? Give me. You don't need to give names.
Sure.
Or anything like that.
Sure.
But what would be an example of something that you saw where the superhero is no longer a superhero, and you're like, well, this is not what I thought it was.
So, yeah. So I started getting into reviewing at that point. I mean, if you Google up the name, you could find Sean Fowler reviews X component, right? And I wrote for small publications, small little e-zines, nothing significant by any means. But even with that little amount of exposure, I started to learn how the industry worked. And there's a lot of ethical people, right? In fact, most reviewers are actually pretty ethical, but the owners of the publications, you have bills to pay. And I would oftentimes see friends of mine who would work with these people who would get screwed over entirely because they wouldn't give gear away or they wouldn't give them money. And I saw that happen enough to where I was like, that's messed up, and no one's saying anything about it.
Yeah.
And on top of that, as a reviewer myself, I had a few experiences to where manufacturers or other people would try to tell me and really strong arm me into saying what they want me to say. Because maybe an editor may, kind of give me a nudge. I'm like, hey, they actually, dude, they pay us. Maybe you could find a different way to say this. And that was disheartening.
Yeah.
And just couple that with some other things going on. I was just like, you know what? My love for hi-fi is just, it was chipped away at very severely. And I never quite recovered fully from it. But I recovered just enough to do Zero Fidelity many years later.
So, fast forward to Zero Fidelity.
Mm-hmm.
This, I don't know what you'd want to call it, this toxic thing that does exist.
Yes.
Does it still exist?
Absolutely.
On the YouTube platform? Did you walk away from that? Are you free from that? And if you're not, what does it look like on the YouTube platform?
Free YouTube platform. There are people on that platform who are very genuine. And YouTube, what was so appealing about YouTube, and this is long before I even thought about Zero Fidelity, is the fact it's just a bunch of people who said, you know what, I have a camera, I have some ideas. I want to have fun with it. It wasn't about the business. It wasn't about building a brand. It was about just putting something out there for people to watch.
Yeah.
And I wanted to honor the spirit of that. And I think at first there was a lot of hi-fi channels on YouTube. Or not a lot, but some of the hi-fi channels that were around back in the day came from that perspective. It wasn't a business. It wasn't a brand. Let's just have some fun. Put out some content, and hopefully people find it fun and useful. Now, fast forward to a few years ago, YouTube, of course, exploded. People began to learn how much money you can make from the platform, especially when you diverse your revenue streams. Serious money can be made, even on a niche subject like hi-fi, where the views are low and so on and so forth compared to other technologies. You can still, if you're smart about it, make a good amount of money.
Yeah.
And I see more and more people joining the business, which makes me excited. But then I learn about how they actually operate. And that's just is disappointing because it's a very, pardon the language, fuck you, pay me. If I'm going to do the work, you need to pay me something for my time and or you're going to give me the product. That is now the commonplace. In fact, it's now protocol to the point where when manufacturers reach out to me, big or small, that's either in the tagline of the email or some of the first things that they say, hey, if you work with us, we're going to give you the stuff. And my response has always been, cool. It's good to know that there's support there and there's appreciation for the work because it really is real work. You would know that.
Yeah.
But it's like, we're not even going to talk about that. In fact, I don't even want to hear about it again.
Yeah.
Until the review's over. And if the review's over and you want to do something great, fine, but I'm not going to bring it up ever again. And I kind of hope you don't either. Because at the end of the day, if you make it about the money and it's easy to do, it does influence you.
Yeah.
You will know which side your bread is buttered on.
Recently you've been cranking out a lot of videos.
Yes, I have been.
You've been working hard. Like, let's acknowledge that.
Mm-hmm.
What is the motivation? And where is Zero Fidelity going?
The motivation is I've never treated Zero Fidelity. I've almost treated it like a bastard child, a pet project. And that's why it's Zero Fidelity. That's why I sit there being filmed by a crappy camera that doesn't work half the time.
Yeah.
And I don't have anything pretty going on. It's a static image almost all the time. And but I never gave it a shot. I always spoke about exotic products. I do one review maybe a month, maybe every 2 months. Yeah. And then I took that job within the industry, and Zero Fidelity basically died for the entire year that I was doing that job because of a conflict of interest. So it's born from the fact that I was like, you know what? I need to just roll up my sleeves and do something. Even if this is a pet project, even if this is not something to have any long-term ambitions with, let's just fucking do it.
So it's more about proving it to yourself?
Proving it to myself that I can do something that I know is not going to go anywhere, that I see as a complete and utter failure, and to invest the time in it anyways, because I nonetheless recognize there's a value to this. I'm getting something out of this because of just rolling up my sleeves with a project like this, and hopefully other people are getting something out of it as well. Useful reviews, content.
Yeah. Okay, let's switch things up a little bit.
Excuse me.
Pie or cake?
Ooh.
Like a fruit pie or cake, like a birthday cake?
Cake.
Okay, I can deal with that.
Yeah.
I know you don't have a reference system per se because you're always swapping things out. I know that about you.
Yes.
Minus the AMR stuff, which has pretty much been there for a good while.
About 2 years now, yeah.
You get to keep all that, but whatever speakers you're listening to, I have now taken them away from you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And I've given you $1,000 to go and replace with whatever speakers you want. What speakers are you going to buy?
If I had $1,000 to spend, a used set of Polk Audio SDAs.
Okay.
Yeah. With that kind of money, you could probably buy the basic SRS. I think it's called the SRS. I might be wrong with that.
$2,000.
$2,000. That one's a little tougher. I would say the Bacart S400s come very close because I don't foresee myself being in a much larger space than where I'm at right now for any period of time. I think they're well-rounded enough, yet listenable enough to where it's like, you know what? I could get down to this.
Okay.
Not perfect, but if I had to buy new, that's where my money would go.
$10,000.
$10,000. You know, it's an interesting thing is I don't have an answer for that because I've come to find it for me after there's this weird dead zone between 5Gs and 15Gs. Like a 15G is like, oh yeah, man, we have some stuff, but between then I don't really have anything.
15.
15, actually, funnily enough, Sabrina.
That would be it.
Technically, I guess it's a little more expensive than that, but.
Okay. What about YouTube comments?
Mm-hmm.
What makes you the most happy? Like full of joy.
Yeah.
I love this comment. And what pisses you off the most? So walk us through both.
Okay, so let's start with the positive. I love it when people contribute with their own experiences, it doesn't matter if it's completely for or against what I have to say. Now, granted, of course, the ego loves it when people are like, you got it, man, you nailed it. That's, of course, always rewarding because that's what I'm going for.
Yeah.
But I love it when people share their experiences. I love it when, people are just positive and encouraging. They take the time out of their day. They don't have to, but they take the time out of their day to say, hey, you know what? Good job. I like this. And if they do have a criticism, as long as they levy it in a very fair manner, I love those too. So yeah, I'm fortunate to have a lot of people who take the time to not only watch me sitting in a chair talking about hi-fi, but to leave a lot of encouragement. What I don't like, and you know this, is the expert, the know-it-all. People who comment on stuff of which they have no experience. They haven't heard the product, but they just don't need to. They know so much that I don't need to experience that product to know if it's good or bad. I don't need to experience that product to know if it's a good value or not. I just know. I just know. That drives me insane. It's a very unflattering behavior. And we've all gone through it before. I've gone through it before. When I started to learn about how this stuff started to work, I am starting to learn about drivers and crossovers and cabinet volume and how all of this pieces together, amplifiers, their topologies, input stages, output stages, this type of transistor and this application. I started to piece these parts together, and it started to give me a huge ego to the point where I was like, I don't need to hear anything. I know enough about this. And I prejudge products all the time. In fact, some of my favorite people in this business have done it and continue to do that. It's this almost innate human response to the ego.
Yeah.
But the more you experience, the more you realize you don't know as much as you think you do. You're going to be wrong enough times to where if you're self-aware, you're going to unlearn that behavior. Yeah. And you're going to realize you either experience it or you don't, which means you either have a valid opinion or it's just an empty one.
Okay. You only have two options.
Oh boy.
You get a Bose Wave radio.
Okay.
Or any headphone you want.
I will take the Bose Wave radio.
Why?
I can't do headphones.
You are so allergic to headphones.
I am.
Why? Why don't you like headphones?
I hate having something on my head, number one. Number two, it sounds like there's a speaker either in my ear or just outside of my ear, and I can't shake that, no matter how good it is. Headphones can be enjoyable. I actually have nothing against the community as a whole. It's just not for me, man. I'd rather have the rave radio.
Cool. All right. Bonus question. It's
bonus question.
Zero fidelity bonus video. Why do you do this?
It comes from ego, doesn't it? You have to have an ego.
Yeah.
To turn on a camera and to think that what you have to say is interesting enough that people are going to tune into it. And I have a massive ego with at least one thing with hi-fi, which is I'm confident in my ability to ascertain what a product can really do, what it's really capable of. And I'm confident in my ability to relay that information while considering all of these variables, the room that somebody's in, the kind of music that they listen to, what kind of equipment they're going to attach it to, how they're going to set it up. There's all these variables that go into creating an accurate analysis, and it seems like it's mission impossible. And in a way it is, right? I can't tell you if you're going to like something or not, but I can figure out what the performance of that product's supposed to be like. And you can use that information to gauge whether or not it's something you'd be interested in. And because I think I'm so good at it, I decided, you know what? Let me start up a YouTube channel. I used to write things, and it's like, I'm not a very good writer. But I love the interactivity between the YouTuber and the audience.
You post a video, you get the comments,
and it's done immediately. It's right there. It's done live, and it's constantly coming in. It's not like a normal article where you write it, you move on. You write it, you move on. It's constantly there, and I like that interactivity because, again, going back to ego, you want to see that you're making a difference, and YouTube allows you as a creator to see the difference that you make. I acknowledged not long ago, I'm not going to make any money off this. I only just started monetizing the videos, as you know, back in January, and I even, as a failsafe, made sure that all of my previous videos had copywritten material, so I could never bite from that proverbial apple of monetization or thinking about money.
Yeah.
In fact, part of the reason why I made that controversial power strip video was to put myself in check. It's like, it's not about the audience in a lot of respects when it comes to popularity. I'm going to do something for me. They're not going to like it. I might lose subscribers, but you need to not worry about the views and the like to dislike ratio, and that was a discipline for me. But I do it because I feel like I have something to contribute. And as long as I can keep it the way that I want to, I think I can continue to offer some people some good.
Awesome.
That's why.
Awesome. If Thomas from Thomas and Stereo and Ron from New Record Day got into a fist fight, who would win?
God, you're both pathetic. No fight would occur.
I would bite him. That's what I'd do. I'd bite his ankles.
Is it racist to say he'd use chopsticks and win that way?
Sorry, Thomas.
He
said it.
Is that racist or culturalist or both? Anyways, guys, that's all for now. But for real this time, peace.